Testing.
What's going on, fellas?
Hey, good morning, fellas.
Another day of the Truth Be Told show. All right,
we back,
folks. It is Tuesday, November 11th, 1 week before Election Day. It's your Truth Be Told show, giving you nothing but truth with an E. That E stands for education and all type of other E analogies, folks. I tell you what, it's amazing. Uncle Meshorn, Better Days with Peter Hayes. How you doing today?
Wonderful.
Hey, man. And that E stands for everything that needs to be told. We will say it here on the Truth Be Told.
Exactly.
You like that? Everything that
Absolutely
needs to be told.
We will tell it right here on the Truth Be Told show. Folks, that even means that if Jesus has a natural daddy, guess what? We're gonna tell you about it. We gonna tell you about it because
truth and nothing but the truth.
Those
when we say
woos,
the truth shall be told, whether you like it or
exactly. Those Catholics and those woos, they may have got together to conspire to hide some truths with an E. So, you know, we need to tell it right here. Y'all ready to rock this show today?
We are unapologetic. Yeah, but I just want to add this. We are unapologetic in saying that the E also stands for entertainment. Okay?
Absolutely. We're here to make you laugh, make you smile. And, you know, the one thing we're not worried about doing is making you feel good. All right? We're not here to make you feel good. You can go to Sunday school, church for that. You know what I mean? You can go to Wednesday night service for that. We're not here to make you feel good.
Right.
We're here to just talk
That's not
truth.
your stuff.
Exactly.
All right, cue the music. Start the music.
Starting music.
And go.
It's the Truth Be Told show, where we place America first. Honoring those who America has forgotten. Listen in and unlearn to relearn. As we set the record straight. And now, your host of the Truth Be Told show, Mr. Just Ask Joe and Uncle Meshorn.
All right, folks. Again, it is the Truth Be Told show. Tuesday, November 1st. Folks, make sure you have a great day today because it is literally the only Tuesday, November 1st that you will ever get. Tuesday, November 1st, 2022 that you will ever get. So remember, make that a great day. And, you know, it's all over Facebook. Vote in person. We got 1 week before elections. And I tell you what, let's talk about this first topic here. Werfu. What is right for us? Werfu. All right. Liberal versus conservative. How would you guys appropriate yourselves as a liberal versus a conservative? Go ahead, Uncle Meshorn.
Well, right out the bat, you know, I'm going to say that because I've never been concerned coming out of the military, who was feeding me, okay, you know, who I'm getting my money from and who's taking care of me, I was able to go ahead and select for myself that I'm a conservative, okay? I'm a conservative. And I think that's, you know, you think I'm clowning, but I'm kind of serious about this, okay? See, if you're concerned about who's putting money in your pocket, you be concerned about who's feeding you needs. If you who's taking care of you and you're not the one in control of that, you might choose another. But if you feel that self-preservation is yours, you create the perimeter around your own, your wife and your children dependent on you, then you would choose to be a conservative, okay? and whatever that conservative concept ideology means. So that's where I'm at.
So,
Peter, where you at?
So I want to hear from Peter, but I want to go back to that because I want to know why can't a liberal have those same values of perimeter, taking care of themselves and stuff like that. But Peter, go ahead. Where you at with it?
Yeah, when you talk, liberal versus conservative, it's kind of, there is a whole political spectrum, and things change. What a traditional liberal was, classical Western open democracy. That's not really how it's panning out today. It's more, you got on the left, you got liberals, and then you have the more far left socialist communists, and then you got moderate conservatives, and you got, of course, so-called right-wing conservatives, which are mostly. It's interesting. They try to say that Nazis were right-wing, but actually Nazis was National Socialism. So they're really, it's kind of, the spectrum is freedom and liberty versus tyranny. So I think those things have to be clarified. I think most Americans, traditionally, we have been a center-right country. It's getting more and more to the left, and some people.
But Peter. All right, you are good at politics. What are you? What, as far as you are concerned, liberal versus conservative?
I am a compassionate conservative, progressive conservative.
You are a politician. That was such a political answer.
The reason I say that, I'm more of an independent because neither party, really is getting the job done. And so, for instance, I'm big on economic and social justice, through citizen empowerment, which is more of a liberal concept. But I'm also pro-life and pro-family, which is more, traditional conservative Republican. So it, for a lot of people, and there's as many independents in America as there are Democrats and Republicans. So we just don't have a party. We don't, I was just talking. I'm doing some, helping run some congressional campaigns up in Ohio, and you probably know Jim Jordan, the Republican. Well, I'm working for the Democrat lady that's running against him. But actually, there's more independents in that district than there are Republican and Democrats, which is very interesting. So,
excuse me.
say I'm more independent. I typically vote Republican though, because I think the Democrats, being pro-abortion and pro, sexual deviancy and high taxes, anti-business, and basically anti-God, anti-business, and so that's not my cup of tea.
Not okay.
So Joe, what are you? Where you stand, Joe?
Are you saying that that's your that's not your dress hanging up behind you? That's your wife's, right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure. Since we're talking about sexual deviancy and stuff. Me, I'll be honest. I grew up believing that I was a liberal. All right. I grew up believing I was a liberal, but I grew up in the church, so I always had a concern when it came to the whole abortion thing. All right. I wish that we could make the abortion law so much as to, say no to abortion, yet rape, incest, there's certain parameters that I believe, there maybe set it up to where there's a quick judicial thing that happens when a person is in a particular situation. But I think that, if a woman is raped, then she should be able to say, no, I do not want to be the mother of this child. And I think that should cover her being able to abort the baby versus giving it up for adoption or going through the whole childbirth. As a person maybe wasn't trying to have a child at the time, and next thing you know, boom, this happens. Or incest to where maybe a child or young girl is made to believe that this is okay, and then finally, it's found out and they wake up, and then but they're pregnant, stuff like that. These are situations where it I'm so I've grown up being liberal minded, yet that was only because I thought that was what I was supposed to be, right? Because I
right.
was a melanated person,
Indoctrinated.
an indoctrinated melanated person. I'm not gonna say minority because I've stopped using that term in reference
right.
to myself because I'm not a minority.
Right,
But
exactly. Glad to hear you say that.
nonetheless, absolutely. Nonetheless, I found, especially over the last few years, I've found that the conservative viewpoint is something that I gravitate toward the most. So I
Yeah.
like the ideology of being an independent and potentially trying to play chess out here, learning to
Right, right.
register for
Navigate.
the party that you want to vote for in the midterms, um, earlier on, 30, 60 days in advance. I think it's 30 days in advance. You got to, register for something if you want to vote for judges and all of that stuff in the midterms if you're a registered independent. Because as an independent, you don't get to vote in the
Well, as long as you're registered, you don't have to register again. But yeah, if you register as an independent, you in Jefferson County, you can vote for the judges, which are nonpartisan. So you could have voted in May, but
exactly.
you couldn't vote for either Democrat or Republican primaries. Now on Tuesday, you can vote. Anybody can vote.
Anybody, yeah. But see,
So
that's where I feel like we need to learn to navigate to be able
right,
to,
navigate.
okay, 30 days before, if you're voting Republican or Democrat, but you're a registered independent, because I believe that more of us need to be a
I'm a
registered
registered
independent.
independent. I've
And
changed. I'm no longer a
yeah,
Republican. I changed to an independent 2 years ago. Ever since my and here's how I looked at it. Let me just add this in here. Now that I'm 60 years old, my children are all grown. I have been able to, I'm 26 plus years in my marriage and everything. I'm financially stable. I've accomplished a few things, so all the things that I needed to achieve, or what was important to me, or what was my destination choosing being a conservative, I have achieved, accomplished, okay? And I done it being a conservative. I've never been a registered Democrat. I've never been a registered liberal my whole entire adult life, okay? I would say, well, maybe when I came out, my parents was already liberals and I was, but when I went into the military and I came back out the military, I chose to be a conservative. And for
Uncle
those
Michon.
30,
Yeah, I mean, as you say that,
yeah.
though, I'm just trying to think. You said earlier that conservative. You brought some points out of what you believe in conservatism, but can't some of those same points be had with a person who is considered
liberal?
A liberal? Don't they want to protect their family?
But here's the question. I mean, to answer that question is the analogy that I like to give is on a bus stop. You're taking a route, okay? There's two bus routes. So you got a liberal route and you have a conservative route. The problem is that each of us, whether you're liberal or conservative, as I stated earlier, you have to know what it is that you're trying to go. You got to know the destination you're trying to accomplish, okay? You can't just get there not knowing, where you want to go. So the question is, to answer your question, surely a liberal can accomplish and achieve the same thing. But at some point, being a liberal and being a conservative does not reach the same destination. Okay. And that's where you have to pick and choose and navigate what it is that you're trying to accomplish. As I just stated, I'm now an independent. For me, I've accomplished everything that I was trying to accomplish on the bus route of being a conservative. Okay. Now that my children are grown, now that I'm older, now that I'm financially stable, now that I've accomplished a few things, now I can take an independent position and everything and pick and choose where I would be. So to answer your question, Joe, surely you can accomplish the things that I said that you can accomplish as a conservative, but you must question yourself or as an individual, what is the end result of your destination? Okay. I reached my destination being a conservative. Will you reach your destination and be happy with the destination you reach as a liberal? I can't answer that for the individual. Only those individuals can answer that for themselves.
You know,
Yeah, I think in the Western world, at least, you have the left wing is more for the whole purpose, and that's why government, relying on government to kind of provide for the general welfare. Where on the right wing is more individual liberty and individual responsibility. So that's where
Right.
the real divide kind of breaks down. You know, those who believe government should be, very powerful and you know, basically, take care, be the main provider of, uh, for the general welfare, where people are more libertarian and conservative minded, want more individual and families to take responsibility. But those are in general views, but that's what it breaks down a lot. It's interesting that left wing and right wing came from at the time of Jesus. The thief on the left and the thief on the right. The thief on the left, um, kind of criticized and mocked Jesus. The thief on the right, basically said, "Yeah, I'm a thief and I'm guilty and I deserve to be hung, but this man Jesus didn't do anything wrong. He shouldn't be up here with us." And then the left wing, and so throughout history, left wing, which led to socialism and communism, the French Revolution versus the American Revolution, has been anti-religious, more secular, where the right wing has been more pro-religious, pro, spirituality. So that's an interesting, and that's the battle we have today. You know, the Democratic Party is much more secular humanist, and the conservative Republican Party is much more, pro religion, pro spirituality, pro family. So it's an interesting dichotomy. And both, when you think about it, both the whole purpose and individual purpose is important. So to have like a
Right.
healthy give and take is very important because too much individualism is not good, but too much collectivism is not good as well. So, I mean, having at least two or more parties is very important. Now, most of the world have parliamentary systems where they have three, four, five, 10 different political parties. So the people actually have more choice. Where in America, we've created a two-party system which is easily controlled because the big money people can control. Like there's three of us here. If there's only two of us, well, someone could buy the two of us off. But if there's three of us, me, you, me, Joe, and me, Shorn, and we'd have to make a coalition. So sometimes Peter Hayes would agree with Joe. We do something. Sometimes I agree with Mishorn. We do something. Sometimes Mishorn and Joe would agree on something. So you have coalition building where if it's just two people, like Republican and Democrat, well, the big boys just buy us both off.
So
Wow.
when we think about this, then um, liberal versus conservative. Typically, we say liberal, we're saying Democrat, we say conservative, we are saying Republican, right? But at the same time, I think we have gone to utilize the term liberal versus conservative because a person can be a Republican and have some. I personally, I've always said this. You know, Peter, you talked about this, that you know, no one person is strictly conservative and no one person is strictly liberal. You have a little bit of both going on in you. It's just which one do you lean more towards in order to, you know, build your life upon, right? I
your
want to pull
destination,
up a video.
what it is that
Exactly.
you're
I
seeking.
want to pull up a video real quick, and if we can, excuse me, just watch a part of this. I think Peter would really like this video, because it kind of goes to a couple things that he does like to speak about. This is Stephen Colbert. Jesus was a liberal Democrat.
It seems to me that Democrats don't get Christmas. Another example, Congressman Jim McDermott, who used the baby Jesus to push his pro-poor people agenda. Jim?
This is Christmas time. We talk about Good Samaritans. We talk about the poor, the little baby Jesus in the cradle, and all this stuff. And then we say to the unemployed, we won't give you a check to feed your family. That's simply wrong.
Of course it's wrong. We shouldn't be talking to them at all. They've got unemployment cooties. And I am not the only one upset by McDermott's flagrant injection of charity into the Christmas season. So is Papa Bear Bill O'Reilly. In his weekly column, he wrote, every fair-minded person should support government safety nets for people who need assistance through no fault of their own. But guys like McDermott don't make distinctions like that. For them, the baby Jesus wants us to provide no matter what the circumstance. But being a Christian, I know that while Jesus promoted charity at the highest level, he was not self-destructive. Good point, Bill. Jesus said we only have to love those who deserve it. And what I like best about Bill's argument is its complete factual inaccuracy. Because it would be inconvenient for guys like us to repeat what Jesus actually said. For instance, if someone wants your coat, give them your clothes. Possessions and give the money to the poor. Plus, the fact
there's the problem right there.
He was self-destructive. He was self-sacrificial. I mean, the guy is God. He could have floated off that cross like Chris Angel Mind Freak. And I love how Bill closes with, the Lord helps those who help themselves, kind of implying that Jesus said that, when it was actually Ben Franklin, who I believe belched out that proverb between mouthfuls of French whore. But as much as I'm a fan of Bill's willfully ignorant, borderline heretical self-justification, I gotta tip my hat to Bernie Goldberg, who came on the factor to call Jesus like he sees us. Jim?
As a matter of fact, you know, Jesus probably would be, except for one or two issues, a liberal Democrat if he were around today.
Yes. Jesus was a liberal Democrat. It's right there in his name. Jesus H. Christ. That H clearly stands for Hussein. Plus,
every time I see that picture of Jesus, there's the problem right there.
Tax cuts for the wealthiest 2% of Romans, even though they create all the good slave jobs. And don't forget, Jesus hung out with tax collectors and prostitutes, and no good conservative would be caught dead with tax collectors. What frightens me about this is now we know we got a liberal Jesus seated at the right hand of the Father. He's basically Yahweh's Joe Biden. Anything happens to the big guy, we can end up with a socialist deity redistributing my loaves and fishes. Well, it hurts me to say this, folks, but if Jesus really is a liberal, it's time to get the Christ out of Christmas. Now, listen, you know me. I'm no fan of the term Xmas or X anything. I make my kids play Christbox 360. And if they break a bone, they get Christ rays. But it is time to take baby Jesus out of the manger. Replace him with something that's easier to swallow. How about a honey-baked ham? Because if this is going to be a Christian nation that doesn't help the poor, Either we've got to pretend that Jesus was just as selfish as we are, or we've got to acknowledge that he commanded us to love the poor and serve the needy without condition, and then admit that we just don't want to do it. Merry Xmas, everybody.
Interesting. Look, we're gonna jump the commercial and then we'll be right back, and we'll talk more about that. But as we do come back, we will also be getting into the Dem and the Republican platforms, and the bus route that you're on. But we'll finish up this conversation here in a second. Right back here with the Truth Be Told show. All right, y'all.
I don't need to sit at your table. We building one. We in the process of building a table. We building a table. I don't got to sit at your table. I'm building my own table, and I will build you a table in the presence of your enemies.
Hey folks, check out healthdaddywoww.net. 100% plant-based herbs and supplements. Whether you're in person or online, use the word tipping for 10% off. Remember, feel better, look great, healthdaddywoww.net. Remember, healthdaddywoww.net.
BB Trading Company, home of soap, sticks, and Saya Baba products. Over 400 locations at a store near you. Cincinnati, Ohio, Louisville and Lexington, Kentucky, Southern Indiana, or find yours online at sayababa.com. Again, that's sayababa.com. A BB Trading Company, where you can find fragrances to incite your senses.
Thank you, Truth Be Told, for allowing God's Lives Matter to be a sponsor. Wearable products, as the purple t-shirt, is bearing witness. Every life created by God has infinite value. Visit God'sLivesMatter.com.
All right, cue the music.
Cue music.
Start the music.
Starting music.
And go.
It's the Truth Be Told show, where we place America first. Honoring those who America has forgotten. Listen in and unlearn to relearn. As we set the record straight. And now, your host of the Truth Be Told show, Mr. Just Ask Joe and Uncle Nishorn.
All right, folks, we're back.
Joe.
Uncle Mishorn, I know you had something you want to get off your chest before we went to commercial. So,
yes, sir.
Go ahead and talk to us and tell us about this picture of Caesar Borgia, Leonardo da Vinci's lover, who posed as the picture of Jesus Christ.
I'm right off the bat, whenever I see, you know how I just push against anyone trying to tell me, give me an image of what supposedly Jesus supposed to look like. And whenever and I truly believe it has something to do with that. My mother, for whatever reason, in the 60s and 70s growing up, she hated religion, and I did not go to black churches at all. My whole entire life, I did not go to black churches until I joined the military. So I get an immediate pushback when somebody wants to give me an image of what they think. And this is where I get this dominant European culture. When I hear Obear talking about what he's talking about, he's only speaking from his position as a dominant European male who can speak and handle and say the things he can say. But you notice that any time our demographics of men now able to drop their balls or say whatever they want to say, we don't get the same luxury of being able to say whatever. It's the same thing where Peter said what he said about baby Jesus and said that he had permission to use the N-word. but Michon gets put off and banned from the whole damn thing because I gave him permission. Not Peter got in trouble, okay, but Michon got in trouble. And it goes with the same dominant European ideology point of view, is that when other people to tell us what Jesus or Christmas or anything is, I just push back on that, man. I'm sorry. I just have to push back on that because that is our problem today. I'm not your black America. And I refuse that nonsense moving forward, man, going into 2023.
Well,
so thank you for allowing me to just get that off my chest.
Absolutely. We can't wait for your book to come out. And just remember, early voting in Kentucky starts this Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Looks like they're going to be open on the weekends as well. That's good. So this Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, I'm pretty sure they'll be closed Sunday because somebody's got to.
We'll close Sunday and Monday. Then the main election day is next Tuesday, the 8th.
Absolutely. So, let me do this real quick. There's someone we love, and this is something. I saw a news report that says Dave Chappelle proves that conservatives can take a joke and the left can't.
Yeah,
that's kind of interesting, and what they're talking about is a lot of the things that he brings out, and when it comes to
the
a lot of
conservatives can receive
right-wing
it, but the liberals can't handle
it. So let's kind of take a look at that real quick, and then we'll jump into why have 95% of the ADOS community voted Democrat for at least the last 50 plus years. 60 years now. Why has that been the case in the 95 percentile? Albert Einstein said, if you continue to do the same thing over and over, expecting different results, then that is the layman's definition of insanity. So Albert Einstein was a pretty smart guy. So let's take a look at this real quick.
Let's talk about Dave Chappelle. Rita.
Yes. I love Dave Chappelle, as you know, being a long-term fan, and he's now come under fire. They're canceling him. The activists are upset. The media's upset. Why? Because he's taken on the trans lobby, and he's basically said, I'm with J.K. Rowling. I'm Team TERF.
I'm Team TERF. I agree, man. Gender is a fact. You have to look at it from a woman's perspective. Look at it like this. Caitlyn Jenner, whom I've met, wonderful person. Caitlyn Jenner was voted Woman of the Year. Her first year as a woman. Ain't that something? Beat every in Detroit. She's better than all. They canceled people that are more powerful. They canceled J.K. Rowling. My God. Rowling wrote all the Harry Potter books by herself. She sold so many books, the Bible worries about her. They canceled because she said in an interview, and it's not exactly what she said, but effectually, she said gender was a fact. And then the trans community got mad as shit. They started calling her a TERF. I didn't even know what the was. But I know that trans people make up words.
Rita.
Yes, he does work a bit blue, but he's you know what I love about him is he's come out and said he doesn't care about the cancellers, he doesn't care about the media, he doesn't care about the activist class or the politicians saying this is hateful. He is not going to respond. He's not going to try to appease them. And what this proves is that conservatives can take jokes and the left can't, because during this routine,
Amen.
he had conservatives. He said plenty of things that conservatives would be unhappy about. He had to go at Trump, but no one from the conservative side that I've seen has tried to cancel him. It is all from the left who cannot tolerate any sort of mockery or even debate.
So here's a thought behind that. You know, conservatives can take jokes, liberals can't. So one thing that I know is we talk about how the melanated community has voted in the 95 percentile Democrat for the last going on 6 decades now. And I know, because I'm one of them, that our people can be very passionate and emotional at the drop of a dime. At the drop
of a dime.
You said, what about my mama? Hey, knock this blade of grass off my shoulder. Knock this piece of grass off my shoulder. Say it again. Knock this grass off my shoulder. Y'all remember that? Y'all know that. We did that as kids. Come on now. Emotional.
Right.
Now, do you know where it came from? Sure. You got beat up as years of slavery, 400 plus years now. We know this stuff. But when someone is so overly emotional, they have an inability to have such the EQ, emotional intelligence, EQ, which is a greater determinant of a person's actual intelligence than IQ. When someone has such high emotions, they have the inability to focus on action versus reaction. EQ is determined by the space in between action versus reaction. Your environment is a big determinant of how large that space will be. So people have a short fuse that deal more in the 95 percentile. Us as a people, we have a shorter fuse. I can attest to that. I agree. So
I can
when
attest
you talk
to that,
about an inability to take jokes, hey, most people you can, brush it off your shoulder and say, hey, that ain't no big deal. That was funny. He said that. Trump probably, laughed at some of the jokes that Dave Chappelle threw at him. You know what I mean? It's funny. He's a comedian. That's what he does. We're supposed to laugh. But like Dave Chappelle has pointed out, and many other comedians have pointed out, we are getting too damn sensitive in this country. And they can't even tell jokes anymore without people jumping on stage, getting mad. People from the liberal left side jumping on stage, getting mad. Can't take a joke. What? It's not funny anymore. You can't laugh.
Yeah, there's a famous saying that.
Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, there's a famous saying that
Go ahead, Peter.
Conservatives don't have a heart and liberals don't have a brain.
Interesting. And that sounds kind of about right. Go ahead, Michelle.
I come up in the era. I'm 60, so I remember growing up where you would get talked about. They call talk to dozens. Somebody would pick on you and pick on you and pick on you, and you needed to learn how to take that stuff and everything. If not, you get yourself in a whole lot of trouble. I grew up that way. I remember before we had TV and all this stuff, I used to get picked on all the damn time. Okay. And I think I told this story. I remember Bobby the Italian boy. I don't know what Bobby had all the women. Bobby was the most popular guy in the school. And we shared homeroom. The only time we was in class together is that we was in homeroom. And on this day, Bobby spoke up to all the brothers and sisters that were picking on me on a regular basis. Bobby said, "Why don't y'all leave Sean alone?" Hey, brothers, I tell this story in Spava. Telling kids, sometimes you just don't know where someone will come out and stand up for you and defend you. I don't know what happened, but when Bobby spoke for me, Joe, it must have went around through the whole damn school. I all of a sudden became cool. Okay.
That's fine.
I no longer got picked on. And why I'm talking about this, prior to that, I just needed to allow that stuff to fall off of me, man. If you don't, you will get yourself in a whole lot of trouble. And that's where I see today. I see a lot of people are just too emotional. They too emotional. What you say to that, Peter?
Yeah, we talked a lot about males, females, and the different strengths and weaknesses. when you think about emotion, that's more of a female trait, and rationality and is more of a male trait. So I think interesting. We've talked about how in the ADOS community is so a matriarchal society, so many women-led households versus other communities. I
Right.
think that may have a big reason why those numbers, Joe, are so slanted. 95%, or more. The
But they
party of
say,
emotion.
and they say, you brought this up recently, Peter, that the most loyal demographic of the Democratic Party is the melanated woman.
Yeah.
The quote unquote
Right.
African American, quote unquote Black woman in America, the ADOS woman in America is the most loyal demographic to the
Yes.
Democratic Party.
The
So
Democratic
that
Party.
makes a lot of sense. You have more women-led households. Wow. So that's interesting.
Yeah, women are into
But
security
I
and
think we can track that to something though. And Peter, you can track that to something though. Check this out. You know what? Remember what I say, the difference between a male and a man: food, shelter, sex, and fun, right? So our cultural women, okay, in the early on were manipulated or deceived the trust in the government for their means, their cheese, their housing, their checks, everything, and the man was put out. Okay, so our demographics of women been passed on generation to generation that depend on the artificial male. Do that make sense? That's why I believe that's why that has carried on so often. Our women have been so relying on the Democratic Party for their cheese, their housing, for everything, that it just makes sense that they want to protect that. Okay. I remember when I had to get a divorce from my first wife. The only difference that allowed me to be able to win my situation, because my ex-wife, she had legal counsel, she had proper representation. She didn't have to pay for any of that. I had to go out and pay for my attorney. I had to get proper legal representation. And the only difference that made me be able to win my case is that I was more financially well off than my wife, my ex-wife, that I was able to pay to have an attorney to defend me to win the case. Okay. Think about the brothers who don't have the financial means or do not have the, when the government have all the legal assistance for the women. They got it all. Our men don't, some of our men don't have the financial means to fight that. You see where I'm going with this?
yeah, absolutely.
We lack sometimes the ability to fight up against the government and the things when our women have all the legal stuff behind them that the government give them. But if our men are not financially in a financial means of being able to fight against it, we lose. That's why we don't get our children. That's why we so many different things that play into that and everything. I think that what you're talking about is so on point, or why so many of our households are led by women, is because they've been getting the financial support from the government.
Yep.
Yeah.
Uncle Sam is the new father and new daddy. And yeah, and that getting back to those numbers, Joe, as we've talked, after emancipation, 100% of descendants of American slaves were Republican, because Republican Party was the party of anti-slavery, and the Democratic Party was the party of slavery and KKK and Jim Crow. So what happened was in the 40s under Franklin Delano Roosevelt, as Michorn said, they, in the name of helping poverty, they started giving money. Mostly the welfare dollars follow the mother and the children. They don't follow the husband and father. So, if you're a married couple, you don't get welfare. But if you're a single parent with kids, you get welfare. And
Unwed with children.
Yeah, unwed with children, and so
Well,
basically,
I think now they have it now to where I don't know if it's marriage, but I know that if you can now have a man in the household and receive assistance, but you both got to be making like under a certain dollar amount so it doesn't push you to really achieve as much. I mean, in a sense, it pushes people to uh kind of, I mean, and we all have seen it, heard it, know
Live
it,
in poverty.
live
slave
in
assistant.
poverty purposely in a sense, or do
Yeah.
some cheating to report, this and not report that, Marcus
Yeah.
Ray says they
Yeah.
followed the European American in the 40s, I guess is saying there. Interesting. So let's talk about that marriage. When you talk about that, we also look at more women vote Republican when they're married.
Who are married.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It says
married women.
more married women vote Republican.
Yeah, because I think, and even older people tend to vote once, like Mishra saying, you own a house, car, you don't want to be taxed to death. You want to keep more of your money that you're out here hard working. So as people get older, they tend to get more conservative, and
Conservative. Yeah.
young people without money, responsibilities can be very idealistic, but when you get down to like, wow, I'm working hard and look at your paycheck and man, they're taking out 35-40% of my money, you know, and so that's typical. But yeah, married women tend to vote more Republican than single women tend to vote. But it comes to that security. They want security. They want health care. They want stuff for free, so-called free, even though, government doesn't create any money. They just collect money from taxes and then they redistribute that money. Obviously, most of us believe in a social net. You know, Unemployment is different from welfare because unemployment you pay into, and if you get laid off, you get paid, and that's the way it should be. Right now, it's 6 months. That's traditionally. It was expanded to 18 months during COVID, but welfare is different than unemployment. So people sometimes get confused with that. You know, and actually
Yeah.
under Clinton, he passed the welfare to work where he said, after 5 years, you got to get a job. You can't receive benefits past 5 years, which I think was a good thing. You got to put a timeline on it because right now in America we have generations of 2, 3, 4, 5 generations of people have been on the government dole who've never graduated from high school, never had a job, never been married. This amazing for 5 generations. That's 100 years. And so
Wow.
it should be a temporary help. We all need help, and I think most Americans would support their neighbors getting help. But why should Michonne work 2 jobs and Joe worked 2 jobs and Billy Bob is sitting home watching Jerry Springer eating bonbons, playing games and getting high, and you're supposed to give some of your money to him.
Yeah. Don't
So,
forget crab
so
legs for
here's an
breakfast.
interesting twist. As a veteran, okay, when all I've been knowing is that when I retired, I'm supposed to be able to go ahead and get VA assistance, and I should be able to go get, use my green card, right? Well, when I became a veteran, I learned because I think it was I can't remember which president passed this bill, is that if you are a veteran and have a household that's earning you $100,000 or more in income, they want us veterans to not use the VA service. In other words, I could go get VA services right now because currently my wife and I income is above the ability to get VA. Now I can get certain things, but I can't. There's some things that I can still, even today. I tried. I tried. Even Leonard and I even had Marcus tell me if there are certain things still today, unless I participated in some loss of limbs or I got some major medical history of problems in there. But if I don't have any of that, if I didn't go to Iran and serve over there, done some time. Currently, right now, I cannot get any VA assistance because currently my wife and I make too much income to do that. And I feel okay about that because there are veterans, okay, that do need the services and everything. But my point of bringing that up, that's where I believe the government does make a good thing because I am able to provide and everything. So no, I don't need to use the VA, maybe like some of my other brothers and sisters who are veterans. So in that sense, I see where the government plays a good role. Do y'all follow me? I can understand. And initially I didn't like it, okay? But I do understand because there are veterans out here who are hurting that can get medical assistance and things that I don't need to do because I got good health insurance. I got things going on. Do y'all follow where I'm going with that?
Yeah, and so that's the thing. You said the magic words there. You don't need it because you've conducted your life in such a manner to where now you're in a position to where you don't need it. I hope that in when I get to be your age that I'm in that same position, and hopefully gathering knowledge from those in my eldership circle that I do it even faster. That's kind of the hope, right? Because we want better for the next generation.
Right,
If I
right,
can
exactly.
soak up some of this knowledge now, then I can do it even faster, right? Because you didn't have the same knowledge as I have and as I'm privy to now. If I'm paying attention, if I'm
you paying attention,
doing right and
navigating properly.
Setting at the master's feet, right? So, when we look at this, why are the ADOS men voting Republican then? We've got more ADOS men voting Republican, and yet again, the ADOS community as a whole are still more loyal to the Democrat Party and the larger demographic of loyalty among anyone in the Democrat Party is the melanated woman, the ADOS woman. Yet men are going back over here. Yet when those same men are married, then their women go with them to the Republican Party. And I mean, we seem kind of all over the place in a sense as a people. We have no communal loyalty among us as a whole group. Like there's no majority. I mean, well, there is a majority. There's a majority Democrat, but it seems like now things are changing. What do y'all think that is? Do you think that black men's balls are starting to hang again? And we're saying, you know what? Enough is enough. I'm tired. I've been beat up, beat down, castrated by this government, replaced as a man by this government, and I'm tired of it, and I'm doing better. I'm not as sick as I was before off of those drugs that you tried to influx into our community as you removed me from the matriarch in the community who fixed all the kids' bikes, who took care of the kids. You got me out here on these drugs, and now I'm getting off of these drugs, and I'm starting to realize that, you know what? Our people have been led astray into a burning building, and I'm here to hose it down and lead them out. back into the right directions. Is that what's being said?
Yeah, and I think it's mostly a Trump phenomena because McCain and Romney didn't get many ADOS males, but Trump, I think, being a strong leader and outspoken and, kind of talk, telling people how he feels. It's kind of like what Dave Chappelle said, Dave, you know, Dave feels free, like he can make jokes about anybody. And these activists say, no, you can't. You can't talk about these things. So I think males are more like that. Like, hey, I want to be able to express myself, and let's chop it up. But you're not going to tell me
Well,
to be quiet, and I gotta buy into your agenda, especially with the
well,
LGBTQ stuff. Is
right.
That's being pushed down the throats of the American people big time, and the Democratic Party is totally co-opted by that movement, and so there's a big reaction, especially people believe in more traditional family marriage and
Right.
to be friends in God. If you believe in God, you got to be question a lot of that sexual
Well,
deviance behavior.
Peter, let's just say what Trump said, okay? Let's say what he said. What do you have to lose?
Yeah.
I mean, he literally put it out there. He said,
so many sound bites from Trump. What do you have to lose? I remember one sound bite where he said, and believe me, again, I don't know if it's chopped up or what. Most of the stuff I believe chopped up. They leave context out. But I remember he also said, that something about the melanated community. They just need to be entertained or something of that nature, and I mean, at the same time, you talk about somebody, and people forget this. You talk about somebody who was at P. Diddy parties, rap parties, he was a Democrat, registered Democrat. He hung out with the rappers and was at all the entertainer parties and this, that, and the other. And so, I mean, he's speaking from a point of view as to what he's seen, in a lot of cases.
He knew
they just need to be entertained.
Did he not know our party, our demographics of people? He literally said, it's two things, and specifically he said, and no one wanna just give him credit for. He said, yes, our folks like to be entertained, emotional. He said, listen up. What do y'all have to lose? I just stay with that. I was already a conservative, but when I heard him say that, hey, I helped engage that 13% that voted for him. And Peter, you remember what I went through. I was on Facebook on a regular basis. I was having knocked out that. Matter of fact, Leonard became one of my friends through all of that nonsense and everything. And people that I was able to win over as friends and everything, and telling them, what do you have to lose? Shoot, look what you're getting over there. And remember, I went on Terry Minor. Do you remember this, Peter? I went on Terry Minor and I did the show with the bottle with the chicken gizzards and everything. And I said, these are the Democratic males, balls in a jar. I went on Terry Minor. I got a picture of that. Me actually with the bottle with chicken gizzards, saying that was the Democratic black males' balls in the jar, because they haven't learned how to break the jar and get their balls back.
And
so
I
believe,
think, it's a good point to make, because that I really think that's what's happening. Is a lot of brothers are starting to wake up and realize that, this just doesn't make any sense. I don't care if you don't even like,
right.
If every Republican then called you a nigga, right?
Right.
If every Caucasoid Republican done called you a nigga, look, I don't care. It just don't make no sense that we voted in the 95th percentile for 6 decades, and nothing has changed.
Something we have not gotten no results from.
So if you believe the
Listen,
whole George
if
Floyd
you are an
incident,
investor,
if you believe the whole George Floyd incident, man, then nothing has changed. And here we are, 2020, officers' knees on neck. Was that 20 or 21? I can't remember, man. So much in the last 2 years. But officers' knees on neck in this day and age, right? And he sits there on his knees smiling and hands in pocket
you're right.
as if to say, and you
Right.
continue to vote for the party that allows it. Right now, Brittany Minor is if Trump was in office, Brittany Griner would be back home already from Russia instead of having to deal with the fact that she had a vape pen in her on her person or in her suitcase, whatever. Which is just the most ridiculous thing in the world that anybody could get arrested for and put in jail for 8 years.
Yeah, I know.
You know, remember,
For
her
9 years.
her thing was
God.
denied. Her appeal was denied. So
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
was
8
denied. Yeah,
years.
exactly.
I would kill
know.
everyone if that was me. And I'm sitting over there for 8 years. And oh my God, she, you know,
For a
if Trump
vapor
was in
pen.
office, look, Tiandra Washington, she says she would have never been locked up in the first
She would have
place.
never been locked up. She's absolutely right.
Yeah. I mean, it just don't make no sense. And you could poise it as the fact that maybe him and Putin had a better relationship than what's your boy's name? Biden.
Damn.
Putin,
That's what relationships is
Putin.
built on, man. Let me just I get so sick and tired of people saying, oh, because listen, relationships and it's called diplomacy. When military people talk, it's called diplomacy. Do you know what diplomacy is? You are just in the middle of maybe the damn button being pushed of a war if you don't win the communication of being able to sit down at the table with people and win their trust, respect, and confidence in some form of what? Diplomacy. And that means having a relationship. I believe Putin and Trump have a relationship. Do you not think they know one another? Oh, yeah, I think they do. Okay. So what? Why people get mad about that, man?
You know, and that's the thing. I mean, that's something that Kanye West is learning about right now, how important relationships are and how you don't shit on all of them just because you're mad. You know, so he's learning that right now that you know, relationships are so important, you know, because and as much as we know the truth behind the Jewish community, controlling everything that we as a melanated community dominate in, pretty much, you know, there's a lot of people in the entertainment industry that are friends and have business relationships with those in the Jewish community. Tiandra Washington says Putin and Biden are besties. Trump and Putin had slumber parties and braided each other's hair. You know, Marcus Ray says that sounds good. However, the only party, hold on, I'm gonna try to do it in Marcus's voice. That sounds good. However, the only party trying to roll back the gains that have been are Republicans. Okay, I never hear the question, what are you going to do any different? So diplomacy is much more.
I wonder what rights he's talking about. They're trying to roll
You know,
back.
and that's Peter. You make the very good point. What rights are you talking about? Because when I hear people talking about, oh, the Republicans roll back stuff, okay, I'm like, okay, what exactly are you talking about? Okay. And who's gonna sit back?
It's always,
you know,
it's always,
I laugh.
It's easy to throw stuff out there, but you need to come with some like fact and solutions. Right?
And who's gonna sit back? You know, this is what.
Well, he might be referring to the voter rights and voter ID, but that's such a. I think the idea that you can vote without showing an ID is so ridiculous. I mean,
it is so ridiculous.
Affirmative action.
Affirmative
he
action.
Points
okay.
that out.
So he goes. So here's my argument with affirmative action. The good old boy program. I agree that we needed something back in the days because the dominant European culture definitely would have promoted and done things specifically solely for look like themselves. So when you look at the affirmative action, and the affirmative action really wasn't detailed enough because what happened, I actually witnessed and saw people who was not qualified to be in these positions, but the affirmative action said as long as you got someone of color or someone, it didn't mean that they were qualified. It could be just anybody could just get the damn job and everything. And so then you had people that was in those jobs that wouldn't even represent you. I remember having brothers that got the affirmative action pledge to be in a certain position, but they was Sambo. They was just allowed to be in the position not because they qualified for it, it's because we allowed the affirmative action and we did it. So I think
with affirmative action
be evaluated.
And he's saying that that's not what affirmative action said, but affirmative action had to do with quotas. Let's be real about that. You had to have a certain percentage.
It didn't have to do anything with people were
qualified.
Yeah.
And I can say this. I can say this about affirmative action. I was during that tenure of affirmative action, I went to go work for Bell South in South Florida. And the first thing they did was have me take a basic electronics test. Well, I didn't know anything about basic electronics, to be a service technician engineer. I didn't know anything about basic electronics. So, but they told me that if I don't pass the test, then still called, human resources was in Atlanta at that time, human resources back, and they would still have something for me. So I didn't pass that basic electronics test, and I called them back, and they started me out as a wire technician. And from there, I was able to go back into reevaluating myself to become a service technician. And, so I was able to move up from the wire tech position.
So you got in on the affirmative action?
I believe so. I believe because
of the first.
Yeah, I got in. I didn't get the position that I originally wanted, but I was able to graduate to that position later. But
because
he said, Marcus is saying, because of affirmative action. Exactly. So Marcus says that is what it turned into. It turned into quotas and numbers because the European American did not want to embrace the idea. Well, what was the real idea of affirmative action if it wasn't numbers? Quotas.
The affirmative action, I'm going to put the affirmative action was the same thing when our demographics of people was talked out. Going to school in our own community and everything, when they said, well, we're going to have these children come over to the East End to go to school with our children and everything. Well, it sounded like a great idea because we thought that if our children will go to school with the white children and everything, they would get a better education. When all actuality, it had to do with sports. Our demographics of people, I even heard the stories here in Louisville, Kentucky. Our kids used to kick the ass out of the East End sports kids and everything. And so all of a sudden somebody had some great idea. Okay, let's integrate our kids and everything. And what was they specifically working on? They went scouting for those kids that was in the West End to go to these schools in the East End. So the educational thing had nothing to do a bit improving education. It had all to do with sports. I think the same thing with affirmative action. Affirmative action had nothing to do with, I'm trying to improve the relationships of our demographics of people and everything in America. That was a lie. It was nothing more than a quota, and our demographics of people just wasn't, and I keep saying this, we didn't know, Andy said it all the time, culturally, we didn't know what we didn't know in the times where we were demographics of men that were docile, inferior, and indoctrinated. If y'all don't really understand that, our men we are just now learning how to drop our balls, okay, and speak our truth, okay? Back then, we didn't have no platform to speak. Y'all understand that?
We couldn't. I mean, in fear, we were still dealing with the fear of the boogeyman syndrome. I mean,
Yes.
the fear of
Yeah.
death.
So
potentially.
Originally affirmative
So
action actually came out of academia. My friend
Yeah.
Reverend James Bevel used to say, if these white professors if they really believed in what they said what they would have done is said, well, I'm going to resign as dean of the school of education
Right.
and find the most qualified African American, and
Exactly.
I'm going to make that person the leader, and I'll be their supporter. Well, they didn't do that. They wanted other people and company. I think it was a good. The idea is to even the playing field, because there was absolute discrimination where people couldn't have certain jobs. I think overall, what it's merged into the quota, and that's I think some backlash. I guess the question is a merit-based society better or strictly statistics based on ethnicity? So you got to have, 13% police officers or 13% rocket scientists. What's funny, in the sports and African American ADOS men dominate so NFL. What if we said only 30% of 13% of NBA players can be ADOS men? And NFL, how would people react to that? Or entertainers can only be 13%. So we'd have to fire the rest of those folks and limit it to 13%.
That's an interesting observation there, Peter. I truly believe the
Because different
best.
communities have strengths and weaknesses, just like males and females. Males are much more
Right.
prominent in the STEM field, math, science, technology than women are, and women are much more prominent in service industries, because they're more men are more into things and women are more into people. So, and Michon, this in the nursing world is a very female dominated. There's more female
Right.
doctors now than males because they're more naturally attuned towards people versus males are more into things. And engineering
I
and
think the
science and
military.
technology is a male dominated field, and that's just natural biological differences.
I think when the military integrated, there was a time that the military wasn't integrated. Okay. I believe that when the military started integrating back in the 70s and the 78, and I went in 1978, there was still some pushback. I remember going to, it's called common task training, where you had to go to all these different uh, uh, stations and everything and get trained. Well, what happened all that day, we went through all these trainings, and at the end of the day, all blacks, anyone that was black, we failed. Everyone failed. Every single one of us failed our screening. And I never forgotten that during that time, uh, uh, people who was Italians, Greeks, Jews, and all, we were all used to be tight, okay, before we got, I don't know if y'all really understand, but back in the days, the Hispanic, the Italians, all of us used to hang out with the brothers. We're all considered connected. But what happened is that first glance pass. I never forget this Italian brother talking about. He said, "How you pass?" And he said, "Man, he gave me the pass." He said, "What you mean the pass?" He said, "Because I look white. Because I look white." And what we discovered is that the first glance pass had played a role in the military. All the white sergeants was the one that was doing all the training. And so they failed all the brothers. So what happened, I remember the Italian brothers, the Greek, all of us, we all worked together and we trained up. And what our strategy was is that we're going to make these sergeants look stupid as hell if they don't pass us now. And what came out, we did pass. My point is this here. In the military started teaching that your ability to handle the mission and fulfill the mission became more important than what you look like. And so the bear the responsibility, who can fulfill and complete the mission. We don't have that today. It's still based on a color construct. I like the military because your merits is based on your ability to complete the mission, and then your commanders and people who see you as that person, they trust and rely on you to accomplish that. Ain't got nothing to do with color. That's why I love the military model based on mission, those who can qualify to accomplish the job.
So
affirmative action wasn't based on that. Affirmative action was
now,
based on filling a quota, whether you can fulfill the job or not. I met my quota, and that was the only thing that it did. It wasn't based on you being able to actually fulfill the mission.
Well, I mean, and Marcus Ray, he says the affirmative action says that if there are two people and both are similar qualified, when hiring, give a closer look to the one that is not European American. Now that's what he's saying. That affirmative
that
action
sounded good,
and it's actually European male because women are considered a minority as well. So it's a European male.
Let's go look at let's go look at cornelllaw.edu. They say, what is affirmative action in simple terms? It says affirmative action is defined as a set of procedures designed to eliminate unlawful discrimination among applicants, remedy the results of such prior discrimination, and prevent such discrimination in the future. Applicants may be seeking admission to an educational program or looking for professional employment. Wikipedia says affirmative action involves sets of politics or policies and practices within a government or organization seeking to include particular groups based on their gender, race, sexuality, creed, or nationality in areas in which such groups are underrepresented, such as education and employment. So, when we look at this, then, I mean, you have what people say as kind of their summary of it, which is what you see here, with Marcus's summary in his own words. And then you have kind of more factual based definitions of it, which in a sense, is somewhat the same, but not, right?
You're right.
Nonetheless, when you're in the HR department and it said, I can distinctly remember that there were some numbers, some quotas you needed to try and meet a certain percentage of your hiring base.
Yeah, and you get bonuses for that. Yeah,
you got bonuses for a certain
exactly,
and they didn't care whether or not whether they were qualified. It was just you were just a body. They didn't care whether or not you met qualifications.
Yeah, I mean, they couldn't put they couldn't put an idiot like Homer Simpson inside of a nuclear power plant to press the button.
Why not? I mean, that's what some people are pushing for.
You're talking life or death at that point. But
one thought, Joe, you said Bell South. So what if they had hired you for that position that you didn't do the test? Would that have been good for society that you're working on?
I that's I don't know if that was a good example anyway, just because the reality of a lot of jobs, I didn't need basic electronics, honestly, to understand what I needed to do for that job. I needed training, which I got nonetheless, even after, but it was a good setup for me to start as a wire technician, which at that moment I was more qualified for because I didn't have to pass the basic electronics test. And then as my dad became a facility tech for Bell South as well, then it was a lot easier after having that time as a wire technician, which a certain technician pretty much did wire tech work, but on a greater scale and dealt with the customer. We were the face of Bell South, if you will, to the consumer, and climbing poles and then the other. So there was a sense that, okay, as I got the wiretech work done, I was able to later go back, take the basic electronics test, study for it, become an ST and all that stuff. And I understood a lot more because of starting that.
What if it was a nuclear plant? They had a quota system and said, well, he's not quite up to snuff, but we got to make our numbers so I can get my bonus. Would that have been good for?
So,
yeah, I mean, I
probably
assume
not.
that probably not,
Now, as Marcus said,
Hey,
if
Joe.
you got two qualified people, and you just said, hey, since historically ADOS have been discriminated, we're going to hire this person over that person. I think most people are like, okay, I can live by that. But when you got less qualified people, what's happening big in academia, and this is happening with the Asian students are doing so well that they're limiting their quota. So for instance, state of California passed a law that only 33% of California institution can be Asians, because if it was based on scores and merit, they would be 40, 50, 60%. And Harvard did the same thing. They limited Asian students, and there's a lawsuit. I'm not sure if that's going to Supreme Court. So that's the other flip side of that. When you're putting in people with less qualifications.
Based on. Hey, Joe, you look up ASVAB, the ASVAB test. Look that up. What is the ASVAB test for military? The reason I want you to bring this up is that when I took my ASVAB test back in 1978, I learned later I bombed. Actually, just so y'all know, I failed my ASVAB test in 1978. But my mother, being a very attractive woman and who she was, I didn't know this. I'm telling you some of that stuff that I learned later. I supposedly went to the front line. Okay, I supposed to have been because of how bad I failed my ASVAB test. I should have became a grunt. Okay, a grunt frontline soldier. And I discovered this only after I tried to change my MOS after I was already in the military. So what I found out, I asked my mother, I said, Mom, how did I become a cook when I went into because I learned that I failed my ASVAB test. And my mother said, well, I had a conversation with the recruiting guy, and I told him, don't send my baby to infantry line unit and everything. And so he needed to fill a quota. So what happened, he only needed to fill a quota for getting someone in. So what he did is he's told my mother, he said, well, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make him a cook. But if he don't pass being a cook, he's going straight to the front line. So I didn't even know this. So y'all know, I didn't even know this. Okay. So I went to basic training, and then I went to AIT for being a cook. Fortunately, I did pass being a cook. Okay. I passed my class, and we went on and been a cook. After I had been a cook for 4 years, I wanted to do something different. And I wanted to go into the medical field. This is where I discovered how bad I failed. I went to my career counselor and said, let's go into being a cook. And the career counselor, Joe, told me, said, first of all, based on this AFAB scores, I don't even know how you became a cook. Because you failed the test. Why am I telling this story? I'm telling you the story is because the military needed to fill a quarter. My mother influenced the recruiter that allowed me to come in. Had I not had my mother to influence the recruiter, you would not see Uncle Michon today. I wouldn't even be here today, okay? Because I would have went into an infantry unit. So my point is this here. We all can be altered based on whoever's influencing certain things in our lives and everything. The recruiter could have told my mother, the hell with it. He failed it. He's going to be in the infantry unit. I could have been a cook and failed that test, and I could have went on to them. But what happened is that I had to go to night school, and learn how to take an ASVAB. That's why I wanted you to read. Had to learn how to take an ASVAB test. I didn't even know what that meant. What does it say about an
it's a standardized test that reveals areas of strength and ability in science, math, and language. Taking the test is one of the first steps before you enlist. Once it's over, you'll get to find a job that matches up to your strengths. And that's for the Army, which is interesting because, you know, that's kind of, when you look at a lot of these futuristic movies, then that's kind of the way that they go is they focus on doing things. They put people, you know, the people that are not the elite or whatever have to like go into certain jobs that focus on what their strength is. They take a test and they go into working towards their strengths, which to me kind of is, in a sense, kind of the way things should be, unless you strengthen yourself otherwise in another area.
That's why I brought that up.
But you know, but either way, hey,
when I went to night school,
I want to switch gears here. You know, because as we wrap up here, I want to switch gears and real quick before we wrap up, then let's look at you know, which family is more, or which party is more family friendly. You know, you know, the traditional 2-parent family versus alternative lifestyles. It seems to be that you have the Democratic Party that is more a go when it comes to alternative lifestyles, right? So that can be, the family can be anything. It could be a dog married to a woman, or a woman married to a horse, or no, I don't think they've gone that far yet. But you can have same-sex marriage. You know, that seems more of accepted in the liberal community versus the conservative community, where it's the focus is more on a 2-parent family household, nuclear family, traditional,
and heterosexuality. It's basically heterosexuality versus everything else.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you know, cats and dogs.
Basically, that's it right there, Peter. That's it right there, Peter. It's heterosexuality versus everything else. That's it in a nutshell. Heterosexuality versus everything else.
So, you know, elections are coming up here next week. Is there a way forward here in Louisville, Kentucky?
Yeah, maybe next week. Well, yeah, we got the mayor's race, which is a big race, and we got the U.S. Senator's race. Charles Booker against Rand Paul. That's a big race. I think Rand Paul will win fairly easy on that. The mayor's race is going to be somewhat interesting. You got the Democrat.
When the last time a Republican been the mayor? Peter, when the last time a Republican been the mayor in Louisville?
I think 60, 70 years ago.
Wow. And crime has exponentially exploded.
Yes, I mean, the reality is, unfortunately, and I'm a registered Democrat, but most of your struggling inner cities, or with the they call them the ghettos, almost are exclusively run by Democrat political machine. And you can't name any Republican ghettos. So the fact, Republicans are more business-minded people, evangelical, pro-life, pro-family folks. The Democratic coalition is, government workers, unions, actually trial lawyers, and then people on welfare. If you're on welfare, which is sizable in America, and you got one party handing out a bunch of freebies, the others say you need to go to work and provide for yourself. Well, who are they going to vote for? And that's unfortunately one reason why so many ADOS vote Democrat for all the benefits. Hey, we'll feed your kids, we'll take care of your health care, we'll take care of everything. And they play the game of, well, these Republicans are racist. They want to they're the KKK. So it's like, it's more like they're just using fear. But,
Hey, Peter.
more males are waking up saying, I don't want the government taking care of me. I can
Right,
take care of
exactly.
myself.
So
I'm a
Peter,
man. I can take care of
I can
myself.
handle my own business.
Yeah.
So Peter, remember the meetings and the tents that we were under that church and everything, all the government handouts and everything, and all those families came through there and everything, wanted a handout and all that. And how many of those were men that came through there? There were no men that came through. There were very few men that came through there, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember that? Remember you and I was sitting there, and how many men actually came through there asking and trying to get handouts? Very few. All of them were women and their
Women with
children. Okay.
Yep. Well, that's what they push.
Yeah. It
Because,
was
if you create economic and welfare and charity slaves, slaves are, going to do whatever you want them to do. And that's what the government wants. They want more people dependent on them so that they have more control and power. And that's not good for society, but it's great for the political machine.
Well, most people in
So
general, when you really
by
think
a book,
about it, are very habitual, right? Humans are very habitual, right? So if you embed something into someone's mind, then they're going to continue doing that until, for whatever reason, they find to do it different.
Yeah.
And again, if you focus on enslaving someone mentally, it's all programming, and that's all it is. It's literally all programming. The American educational system, programming, television, programming, radio, programming. It's all subconscious programming to get you to keep doing the same thing over and over, because when someone is that predictable, it's easier to control them. Talk to any narcissist around, right?
Put them in the matrix. Yeah, once you get them in the matrix, you want to keep them there.
Exactly. So
Joe,
this is something.
like this. There was one girl in Florida, and she was like 15 or 16, and you know how you say, "Hey, what do you want to be when you grow up?" She said, "I want to draw." So the teacher was like, "Oh, that's great. You want to be an artist?" No, she said, "No, I want to draw a welfare check."
Wow.
That was her, and that shows what you're saying. Her thought in life was she was going to draw a welfare check. It's Section 8 housing, welfare.
And
because she saw her mama do it, she saw her grandma do it,
yeah.
she saw her grandma do it before that,
and
that's all she knew. And what she said, it was good enough for them, it'll be good enough for me.
And the reality, there's more European Americans on welfare than there are anyone else statistically, but that makes sense, the numbers. So it's not just, it's across all ethnicities when you get people.
Right, it is.
I would like to see a number that shows how many people stay on it longer than 2 years, or the length of time people are on it across demographics. That would be an interesting number to look at when you focus on that.
That's a good point there.
Because I mean, to use it in its truest form as a point of assistance to as a stepping stone to move up, then that is a definitely great use of it. And we all could get behind that, liberal or conservative. But to stay on it, sit on it.
When it started, they were work programs. And it was men. They put the men to build the Hoover Dam and bridges and roads. It wasn't no set at home watching TV, getting high and knocking up the babes and you're getting a check. It was, they put the men to work, which makes sense. They put the men to work.
A certain sense of deviancy. It promotes because, for one, if you're getting welfare, you can't buy everything with food stamps that you want to get for your kids. And now you look at television programming, and now your kids are seeing all this stuff on TV that they want for Christmas, this, that, and the other. Now you feel pressure to either sell some of your stamps in order to get some cash to buy some of that stuff. That's a federal crime. Or to do something that, I mean, you can't go and do a regular W-2 job, right? For that. So because that'll, they'll see that, and your food stuff will get slashed. So in a lot of cases, people are in a catch-22 with it, because right now everything's being paid for, but you can't buy stuff other than food, or not much stuff other than food. Basically focus on what you need.
You can't buy alcohol and cigarettes, and a lot of people do sell their food stamps. Misha and Andy, one reason we wrote Andy Hodges and I wrote the Snip and Clip Act of 2009. He was telling the story about his girlfriend. Her daughter, she had a 4-year scholarship to Cal State Fullerton, full ride. And then she got pregnant by this one guy. And this guy was 25 years old, already had 6 children out of wedlock. And then his girlfriend's daughter got pregnant again by another dude. So no college, boom, she was on welfare. And then she used to sell her food stamps for cigarettes, and halfway during the month she ran out of money, so they had to hit up his girlfriend and Andy for money. So it's just a whole dysfunctional system. So we were talking about it. We came up with the idea that you could have one child out of wedlock, and then the male and the female both need to be snipped and clipped, and say that's it, But every 5 years, no, if they could any time going forward, if they could prove like, hey, I got my stuff together, I can financially support a child. I'm not going to ask Mishorn and Joe and Peter for money out of their paycheck. You could have that reversed. And every 5 years it would be reviewed. So, if you got your stuff together, say, hey, I can afford, I got a college or job, or I can afford to have a child. And it was kind of and we developed this congressional act. It's interesting. We sent it all over the country. 99% of the people thought it was a great idea that if you have one child out of wedlock, boom, you get snipped and clipped, and both the male and the female. The male gets snipped and the woman gets clipped, and boom, put an end to that. So you wouldn't have these serial fornicators out here, having literally.
Yeah, because I mean, to be honest with you, that's the bulk of the cost right there. Is if you're on full government assistance and you have one child, and okay, let's say because I mean the assistance goes as far as childcare and everything, right?
Yeah, it's housing, Section 8, so that's like 800, 1,000 a month. Food
But then
stamps,
even with that, even when you look at that, kind of the catch-22 is you can't work a regular job. You can't work but so many hours in a regular job when you have government assistance. So even if you just have one child, and maybe, and this could be a certain level of my ignorance, but even if you have one child, you can't work, I think, more than 20 hours, I think, something like that, or else your food stamps get cut or something.
Well, yeah, it's mostly based on income. That's how crazy. I tell people our welfare system is demonic, because you make a good point. If a single mom gets a job, instead of encouraging her, say, hey, that's the right thing, we're going to give you even more support, they take away their health care. And
yeah, they start taking things away the more they get. So then now a person is trying to be on the come up, but you start having to pay for more things as you're on the come up, and it's like, hold up, man, I'm trying to get there, but you're taking stuff away. But so then now the thought is, well, I might as well just fall back into letting them take care of me because it's you know.
Yeah, they're getting the latest. I think was about $25,000-$30,000 worth of support. Now that's not a lot of money, but if someone's at a minimum wage job making 15,000, like you said, a single mom says, well, or dad, I want to get out and get a job, but I'm going to start out making 15,000. Wow, they're going to lose 15,000 a year if they go to work. Now, what they should do, and this was my plan when I ran for mayor, I reversed it. I said no one's going to get nothing for nothing, but if you have three options you can do, you can go to school, we'll help you, give you some support, you can get a job, or you can go to apprenticeship. If you do that and you need childcare, you need transportation, then we'll help you until you get to about, $30 or $40,000 income. Then you move on. But it would flip the whole script because we would be rewarding them for good behavior. But if they said, no, I don't want to go to school, I don't want to work, I don't want to learn something. What I said is, I'll pray for you, but you're not getting anything because you got to do something to help yourself. And then
I think that's fair.
We can give you free education. We can give you free apprenticeship programs. We can train you, but if you gotta have some skin in the game. And it's funny because I had one professor at University of Louisville. She was a socialist. She said, "Well, I'm a Marxist, but I think your idea is the greatest thing I've ever heard because it really would flip the script that we help people who are helping themselves." Right now, the system. Here's another thing: if a man and a female are living together, they can get benefits. If they get married, they take away their benefits. So the government's actually discouraging marriage.
Yeah.
And how could that be when we know that marriage is such a very powerful, important, and beneficial thing for society? So if you get a job, they punish you, and if you get married, they punish you. So why? Because they're trying to get as many welfare slaves as possible, dependent. Because election time, and sadly, it's the Democrats that are pushing most of that. The literature they give out in the African American community is
so
the
fellas,
Republicans
as we
take away all your stuff.
Let's go ahead and wrap this up.
Fellas,
Uncle Michon, go ahead and talk your shit.
Yeah. Let me talk myself. Peter called me and asked me to be involved with something, and I told Peter, yeah, I would get involved. And so when I'm hearing y'all talking about what you're talking about, I go back to the 5 man up principles. I've said this from the beginning. I'm just not going to get away from it. I believe that when you can affect, and I'm going to read exactly what I wrote here, by focusing on the males becoming men as an individual, provider, husband, father, and community leaders, we will be able to effectively change our society in the next few decades and centuries. I believe this. You focus on changing males into men, okay, and helping them to become responsible individuals, become strong providers, and then move into becoming a husband, and then being responsible fathers. Then they also will then become community leaders. I'm sticking with that model, man. I'm not gonna, these women who came to me, I need you to come help me with my daughter. I said, I'm not talking to daughters, okay? I'm not talking to young girls, okay? I'm only going to talk to young males and giving them the direction how to become a man. And a man who learns how to be an individual responsible, a male will learn how to be a good provider for himself first. Then you can take on the responsibility, being able to become a husband, a father, and then you can effectively be a community leader. Right now, all 3 of us right here are great individuals, okay? We are individually able to take care of ourselves. All 3 of us on this line are great providers. Joe, you get ready to become a husband, but you already been a good father, trying to be a good father to your children. Peter, you've been a father. We both, you and I, are in our 60s. We're financially now in a good position. That means that we can be great what? Community leaders. Y'all see how that works?
Yeah, you can give
If we
back to your
focus on
community.
those
Yeah.
5 principles in changing the male to becoming men, good individuals, good providers, good husbands, good fathers, then they can effectively become great community leaders. Here it
Time to
is.
man up.
And
Man up
and that's
time.
interesting
Man up.
because those principles, you know, as you just explained them, talk about stages in life, giving you the ability to do those things throughout your different stages in life. So, folks, that has been yet again another episode of the Truth Be Told Show. Folks, if you get a chance, remember godslivesmatter.com. Check that out. historyuntold400.org. Check that out. A couple of people in our circle, we want you to take a peek at them. healthdaddywow.net, as well as sayababa.com, syababa.com. You know, support some local vendors and business professionals in our circle. And, you know, again, check us out on YouTube at the Truth Be Told Show, or Truth Be Told Show. That's truth with an E, Truth Be Told Show. And you can check us out online at truthbetold.com. That's again, truth with an E, betold.com. All right. Until next week, we will see you again. Remember, elections, you got Thursday, Friday, Saturday here in Kentucky. You can go and vote. No Monday and then Tuesday, right? But Tuesday, you're going to be in longer lines, right? So you might want to get out there early because you never know what could come up. The world might blow up, and then you will only be dealing with the votes that came Thursday, Friday,
And Joe,
Saturday.
on that, just so people know, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, there's only like 8 locations in Jefferson County. So on Tuesday, every polling place where you traditionally vote will be open. But, you know, some people may think they can go to so they have to go online, Jefferson County Clerk's Office, or in Kentucky, and find out where those polling places on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
Gotcha.
Versus Tuesday, every polling place that you traditionally go to in your neighborhood will be open.
All right, folks, we're out of here. Again, it's Truth Be Told Show. We'll see you next week. Peace.
All right, next week.
All right, cue the music. Cue music. Start the music. Starting music. And go.
It's the Truth Be Told Show, where we place America first. Honoring those who America has forgotten. Listen in and unlearn to relearn. As we set the record straight. And now, your host of the Truth Be Told Show, Mr. Just Ask Joe and Uncle Mishorn.
you.